So you got Papa Bush, and you got Baby Bush, you got Prescott Bush. Prescott Bush made his money with the Nazis, but then Baby Bush, or Poppy Bush, he went to fight the Nazis in World War II, and he was 18 years old, got shot down. He also is going to sign the Civil Rights Act. Let's talk about the good things. What are the good things that old Poppy Bush has done for the world? Well, Poppy Bush had actually signed the American Disabilities Act in 1990. He vetoed the Civil Rights Act, one of the first presidents to veto civil rights after 64 of 1990, but then he's going to approve a Civil Rights Bill of 1991. He's also going to pass an Immigration Act of 1990. It was a 40% increase in legal immigration. So he helped legal immigrants come to this country. So Poppy Bush had immigration settled. He had civil rights settled. He gave the disabled civil rights. The Americans with Disabilities Act was signed in 1990. So expanded rights for the disabled. So, you know, those are some really good things. He fought against the Nazis in World War II. And the START Treaty, he signed the START Treaty with Russia to reduce their amount of nuclear warheads. So he's acknowledging that we need to have, there's too much nuclear proliferation, so we need to scale the nuclear proliferation back. So his highest approval rating was during the Persian Gulf War. So that's those are some of the good things that he did, right? But mostly he's a piece of shit. Under Reagan, he ignored AIDS. Under Reagan, he did Iran-Contra. He's going to pardon everybody in Iran-Contra. We'll never know what the hell happened in Iran-Contra. So 6 men were pardoned in 1992, December 24th, right after, right before Poppy Bush steps down. There was a ban on the permanent presence of infidels in Saudi Arabia, so he contributed to one of the many reasons that bin Laden did not like us. He put troops next to Mecca. And in Saudi Arabia, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, or the Prophet Muhammad, he said, no infidels. We can't have any infidels in all of Saudi Arabia, but American troops were there. So he signed NAFTA. Poppy Bush signed NAFTA. He got us into a Panama War. He got us into the first Persian Gulf War, or the first Iraq War, and then he's going to go ahead and key up the Somali War for Clinton. So he signs NAFTA, gets us into 3 different wars, and for what? What's the point? What was the purpose? The purpose was to go ahead and pave an empire, and that's actually one of his last quotes. One of his last quotes is something about the specter of the Vietnam War has died in those desert sands in Arabia. So he's sitting there saying that now Americans are not afraid to just attack anybody and everybody. We're, confident now to be the empire that we're always going to be. We're in this forever war. We've been in this forever war since 2001. It's 2018, almost 19, 18 fucking years, 18 years. This forever war, this war against terror, this war of American empire taking over the entire globe. We're totally okay with empire. We're totally okay with war. We've given all the war powers in the world to Donald Jefferson Trump, and then Jennifer Trump is sitting there in Africa starting 20 shadow wars. We're still bombing the same 8 countries. We're bombing under the Democrats, Obama and George W. Bush, all these motherfuckers. Even Bill Clinton had no flies. There was a bomb in Iraq, and Bernie got Bernie Sanders to go along with his bombing in Iraq. So this is a bipartisan consensus. So old Poppy Bush, Mr. Copperfield, old Professor Copperfield, he's into misdemeanor sexual battery. So in the misdemeanor sexual battery, Bill Clinton kicked George Bush's ass, right? So can you imagine being the president, being the man, and then you got this comeback kid kicking your ass? This comeback kid just says, I care, America. I care about you. Can you imagine? He was a better showman. He was more empathetic. So he's willing to play the part. So therefore, Bill Clinton, the legacy of Poppy Bush is Bill Clinton. The legacy of Poppy Bush is George W. Bush. The legacy of Poppy Bush is Jeb Bush. The legacy of George Bush is his own presidency and Ronald Reagan's presidency and Gerald Ford's presidency, because he was CIA under Gerald Ford. So the 1980s was the, American Psycho, the Wall Street greed is good crowd, Michael P. Keaton, let's make money for ourselves, fuck the world, Ronald Reagan is great, woohoo! Who cares about the poor and the human rights all around the world? So, Poppy Bush, he's not a John Quincy Adams. He's not even really an Andrew J. He's a Rutherford B. Hayes. He's a Calvin Coolidge of the 20th century. He apologized for patting women's rears. Sorry for just patting. Were you just patting or were you grabbing? Yeah, right. Me too, motherfuckers. They've ended how many careers? They ended Louis C.K. career without any fucking reason. They ended, what's his name? Al Franken's career, the Lion of the Senate. Who's going to fucking oppose, Trump now? You had a big lion who was opposing him. Now you don't have anything. Who's opposing Trump? Who's going to, beat Trump in the presidency? Jesus Christ, there's nobody on the horizon whatsoever. Good call, Democrats. Wait, what? You felt good about yourself, right? Well, we're better than them because why? Because you fucked somebody over on something petty and minor and small? You didn't think of the big picture. And didn't Al Franken not, he doesn't deserve due process? Kevin Spacey, I think, is, fuck him. Harvey Weinstein, fuck him. Stan Lee, he seems like a weird guy to me, but the incident doesn't sound like it was really that. When an old man was creepy, perverted, when some woman was putting her hands all over him, he seems like he would be deprived. He's like one of those dogs that never get any love, and as soon as you pet them, they just, get a big old boner, and they can't wait to, just start humping your leg. So, I don't know about Stan Lee. Papa Bush straight up was like, yep, I pat women's rears. That's what I do. I grab big old chunks of ass, He's a fucking gangster, right? He don't give a fuck. He went ahead and killed all those Iraqis, 50,000 Iraqis, killed 292 Americans in the first Iraq War. He didn't give a fuck. He didn't give a fuck in Panama. He killed hundreds of people there. Some military, mostly civilians, who killed lots of people in Panama. 314 Panamanians were killed, 23 Americans were killed, and then 500 civilians were killed. America admits to 202 civilians. So, wow. So 23 Americans were killed. That's not many Americans, but overall 500 people, 500 people that we admit to, plus 300 more civilians. What did Noriega do? Why did we invade Panama? And if invading a country is wrong, right? Hitler invaded Poland. That's why we got the United Nations, because you're not allowed to invade. One sovereign nation cannot invade another sovereign nation. So how come we're allowed to go into Panama and take their leader? We're allowed to take the leader. We're allowed to take the president of another country. We're allowed to do a coup d'etat on other countries. And of course, we do this shit all the fucking time. We're the empire, right? So whenever we see an opportunity and we think it might be good for our interest, yeah, let's just go ahead and topple regimes. So that was apparently worth 23 American lives. So he's going around killing people, going around filling people up, right? He's a sexual deviant. He's a pathological misdemeanor sexual assaulter. That's his legacy right there, going around assaulting the poor women, They're just sitting there with their asses, hanging out, and he grabs them, and then what? No recourse for them. They at least deserve $1 million. But it's just interesting now, we're going to forgive this old piece of shit, meanwhile we ruin all these great men's careers over Louis C.K., fuck you motherfuckers on Louis C.K., Al Franken, fuck you motherfuckers on Al Franken. He was a super delegate, they're both powerful so they can defend themselves, but you motherfuckers are wrong about them. You're going to end their careers. They're some of the smartest, most poignant, some of the most astute observers we got in American culture, and you're just going to throw them off by the wayside. What, to pretend that you're good? To pretend like what? You don't like sex? And then if you're going to forget Papa Bush as if what? Grabbing women's asses whenever the fuck you feel like it isn't a bad, isn't a wrong? It is a wrong. It clearly is a wrong. And he just said sorry and that's good enough? Is that what this whole thing was been about? If Kevin Spacey, well, he did say sorry. Louis C.K. did admit it. He did apologize. Al Franken said he was sorry too. So apologizing isn't, actually, fuck Kevin Spacey. He was, messing with a 14-year-old, but that's, not as bad as some other people, but that's bad. And then Harvey Weinstein, that shit was bad too, I think. I haven't looked too much into it, but it sounded pretty bad. But Louis C.K., Al Franken, fuck you motherfuckers. But if you are going to go after Louis C.K. and Al Franken, and you ain't going to say shit about Papa Bush, you're a fucking hypocrite. So, I don't know if he was there, if he's responsible for JFK getting shot. I don't really think he's a Nazi because Prescott Bush was a Nazi, but then Poppy Bush fights the Nazis. He gets shot down in World War II. So he actually was murdering Nazis and killing Nazis like a fucking badass. And good for him. World War II, and the Civil War are my two holy wars. The fall of the Berlin Wall happens under him. The collapse of the Soviet Union happens under him. It's an internal collapse, so it had nothing to do with really the 92. He's going to get elected with the worst approval rating since Taft. He's not going to get elected. He's going to get, downgraded. So his highest in 91, he had an 89% approval rating. By the time he runs for re-election the next year, he only has a 35% approval rating. So he went from 89% to 35%. And really, Donald Trump has had a 35% approval rating the whole time. Bush runs against Dukakis in 1988. When he ran against Dukakis, he ran the Willie Horton ad. So he went ahead and stoked racism by saying that Dukakis was soft on crime. He also, Dukakis is going to lose because they asked him about the death penalty, if his wife was being brutally raped and murdered and tortured and all the rest. What's he going to do? And he was like, look, that's really bad, but I'm still against the death penalty. And he had that cheeky smile, but it was like, that moderator just asked if your wife was to get murdered and raped and killed, and you just shrugged your shoulders. So that election against Dukakis was just fucking bullshit. It was just a dumb election. But Bush basically rides on the coattails of Ronald Reagan, the great, 80s, the Ronald Reagan 80s, and then he rides on that coattails. And he's boring and he's dull. There's nothing wrong with being boring and dull, except for you're only going to have one term, right? You're not dynamic, so you want to be a quiet little diplomat? Then be the director of the CIA. There. Now shut the fuck up. You want to be a quiet diplomat. If you want to be president, you need to be louder. So I feel like the few things that I do know about him, it gives us something to talk about. But really, he didn't do much. What about all the poverty? What about all the fucking homelessness? And the war, we got a forever war now, fucking forever and ever, right? We're the empire, so we gotta what? Be the world's policeman. What happens when the world fucks up? That's our fault, right? But we don't give a shit. We don't intervene. We didn't intervene in East Timor when Indonesia was invading them. We didn't give a shit about Iraq and Iran when they were fighting each other, right? We try to be strategic and we give them both guns so they all kill each other. So old Professor Copperfield is dead. So yeah, I hope everybody don't forget none of this shit. I mean, Jesus Christ, something happened. See, I can't remember what I wrote there. So he's a director under Gerald Ford of the CIA. We give the Saddam Hussein the A-OK, and then we started bombing the shit out of him. We lost the Somali War. We lost the War of 1812. We lost the Vietnam War. We've lost the Korean War. We've lost lots of wars, okay? And the Somali War. So he won Panama, yes. He won the first Persian Gulf. He lost the Somali War because he teed Bill Clinton up, and Bill Clinton took the bait, got us in the war, and then pulled us out. So, if you're going to do it all the way. So Willie Horton was racist. So they stoked all the racism in order to win. He's basically a kind of a John McCain hero. He went to World War II. I don't know if he killed any of the Nazis, but he did get shot down. So he, damaged American planes. He didn't destroy as many American planes as John McCain did when he killed over 100 American servicemen. But it was a very right-wing, prudish society. What a right-wing, prudish society. That's essentially what I learned. But guess who established this very right-wing, prudish society? Old Poppy Bush, right? He just wanted to have sex with Barbara Bush for the rest of his life. He's just Barbara's bitch for the rest of his life. Well, that's not a very good legacy right there, now is it? He talks about the 1,000 points of light. I like that imagery. Very drama-free, very few sex scandals, except for at the very end of his life, he got caught up in the Me Too movement in the bad way. Dick Cheney was his war chief, so he gave Dick Cheney his, war budget, defense budget. The war machine went to Dick Cheney. Dick Cheney, we're going to see come back again. He said, "Read my lips, no new taxes." So you had Pat Buchanan and Newt Gingrich and a lot of people with the Newt Gingrich revolution of 94. Because of this happening, he actually agreed with the Democrats. He raised taxes because the Republicans weren't working with him, so he just went with the Democrat bill, and then the Republicans, absolutely hated him. So he lied. That's what read my lips, no new taxes. He's a liar. And really, don't they all lie? I did not have sex with that. There are no weapons of mass destruction. There are no weapons of mass destruction. So increased welfare and unemployment benefits. So he did some welfare shit, right? He passed the American Disabilities Act, did a couple good things. They're going to say he lost because of a recession. I remember a recession. It wasn't like the 2008-2009 recession when the entire world was about to be blown up. But unemployment rate was at 8%. We're only allowed 5%, so it's a little bit above where we wanted. And then they talked about 14% poverty. So out of all of America, 14% of Americans were poor. So that's they blame the economy, but really there wasn't much of a recession there. So really he was just uninteresting and boring and undynamic. He thought the war would win him, and he thought the one fucking thing was a splendid little war bombing a bunch of people over in the Persian Gulf is going to be the best goddamn fucking thing in the world. But, you know, at the time, everybody was excited about it. Then after 1 month it was over, then we went back to our own damn lives. Most of the people said that the economy was doing bad when they had the exit polls. So he was, you know, supporting Israel. He didn't want to go to Iraq the first time for a quagmire, but he did want to break the Vietnam syndrome, so he opened up the doorways to pave for the forever war. He paved for the empire. The reason why we're an empire now, and we're going to be in this forever war until the day we die, this war on terror is more important than the Revolution War, more important than the Civil War, more important than the World War II, stopping the damn Nazis. This forever war is, you know, forever. We're going to be the world's policemen bombing anybody and everybody who is terrorist, but isn't war, big-time terrorism. So all we're doing is saying, no, if you're going to go, you know, if you're going to fight, you better go balls to the wall and do a fucking revolution. You better not do no terrorism bullshit. If you're going to do little shit, then sabotage. You know, go ahead and blow up buildings and shit, but you better not do no damn terrorism, because if you do terrorism, then we're going to do some big-time terrorism. Well, what do you do for big-time terrorism? Grand-time terrorism? What do you do with grand-time terrorism? Goddamn exponential fucking, you know, nuclear fucking terrorism? What the fuck? War is terrorism. We got to put it into war. Only revolutionary war is the only kind of war that's even tolerable or acceptable. And that's fighting for freedom, fighting for rights, fighting for human dignity. Oh, here's another thing Poppy Bush did. Poppy Bush put 42 appeals judges, 148 district court judges. He went ahead and appointed nearly 200 judges, a bunch of homophobic right-wingers. He appointed Clarence Thomas to the Supreme Court over the screams of Anita Hill. Anita Hill screamed rape, and yet Clarence Thomas still got to the Supreme Court. So it didn't matter, right? Again, here, he was ignoring the Me Too shit under Clarence Thomas. Clarence Thomas is still on the Supreme Court. So the Poppy Bush changed America dynamically. You know, the Supreme Court, they get that job forever and ever. He makes sure Iran-Contra, we don't know what the fuck's going on there. AIDS, they laughed about AIDS for a year or two before it got out of hand because it was just affecting the gay community. They killed the unions, fired the air traffic controllers. Operation Just Cause, right? So they went ahead and toppled Noriega. They invaded Panama, and then they invaded Kuwait, saying that, hey, you can't invade countries to Iraq. Hey, Iraq, don't invade countries like we invaded Panama. Hey, Iraq, don't you invade Kuwait like we're going to invade Somalia. And we invaded Iraq. That was okay, or Kuwait. So they're not allowed to invade Kuwait, but we are. We're allowed to put a base up and put lots of money there. So got ourselves a nice little African base there. He did try to reduce the nukes. Oh, here's another bad thing. So during the Persian Gulf War, Poppy Bush talks about a new world order. We want to establish a new world order. So, you know, Ronald Reagan had a hell of a time trying to bomb countries because the damn journalists kept exposing him. It just happened after Nixon and Ford and all that fucking shit. They were trying to get, you know, on board. Let's not do any big fuck-ups anymore. So he wanted a new world order. Hell, you could call this the Poppy Bush New World Order. They blamed it on dead babies. Hey, there's dead babies everywhere in the incubators, and it's horrible what Saddam is doing to the dead babies. And then we went in there and we killed a whole bunch of fucking kids, a whole bunch of dead babies after we invaded. The economic restraints, the economic sanctions had killed thousands of children, and then we just went in there and just were indiscriminately bombing. We're supposed to believe that the smart missiles are targeting the exact, you know, targets that we're aimed for. No, there was one report about a hotel being bombed, and then they came back and bombed the hotel again. The hotel is filled with families, no military personnel whatsoever. Bombed the shit out of hotels. 400 to 500 people wound up dying. So there was not a declaration of war like the Constitution says. All these damn strict constructionists, we're not allowed to be in war unless Congress declares war. We still haven't declared war. We authorize the use of force, which is basically fucking war, but that's not a declaration of war, now is it? So we're not even living off the Constitution for all those constitutionalists. It's all about the Constitution. If it's about the Constitution, how come we don't declare wars when the Constitution fucking requires that Congress must declare the wars? Oh, who gives a shit about the fucking law? Okay, that's right. Americans, the leadership of America does not care about the rule of law. If you care about a democracy, you care about the rule of law. So he had an 89% rating. Jarhead is a movie about the first Persian Gulf War, and Black Hawk Down is about the Somali War, if you want to check that out. I don't know any war about the Panama War. Why haven't we done a war about the Panama War? This Noriega character seems to be a real, real character. So thousands of civilians were killed in the first Persian Gulf War. Hundreds, maybe thousands in Panama. Somali, a lot of people died in the Somali War too. U.S. 19 Americans died in Operation Gothic Serpent. 500 Somalis were killed in the Somali War. So again, that's a tiny war compared to Panama. Panama's a tiny war compared to the first Iraq War, and the first Iraq War is tiny compared to the second Iraq War. So really, three little wars, comparatively speaking. But are you going to tell me that you wanted 23 of your loved ones to die in Panama? Because 23 Americans died in the Panama War. 19 Americans died in the Somali War, the Battle of Mogadishu under Clinton, which Bush teed up. And then you had 500 civilians, 314 Panamanians, right? 500 Somalis who died. And then for the Gulf War, the first Iraq War, you had 292 Americans die, and then over 4,000 Kuwaitis died. And then 50,000 Iraqis, and then, 5,000 civilians. And really, we weren't even counting the civilians, so there's no telling when it comes to the civilians. We need better counts when it comes to civilian deaths. Because the smart bombs didn't bomb the targets. The smart bombs actually missed 40% of their targets. So we bombed hotels with families. We brought in the B-52s. We weren't doing just smart bombs. We would hit it, the hotels and the hospitals and the schools. We destroyed every bit of infrastructure that we could. And then the United Nations was helping rebuild some of the hospitals and schools after we bombed the shit out of everybody and everything. So we try to, but really we break the thing and then we don't give a shit. Panama descends into chaos after we go into there. So, yeah. There was a whole bunch of dead. In February 1991, we killed 400 to 500 people in a building, a bunch of civilians. Most of them were kids. A journalist said no military presence whatsoever. So we're killing hundreds of fucking people. Indiscriminate bombings. Bombing here, bombing there, just to go after Saddam Hussein. And then we don't, Hitler with fucking nuclear power. He doesn't have nuclear power. He's not going to get a bomb forever. But, in fact, he had no weapons whatsoever. So this Hitler that, they said had nuclear weapons and he's the danger and we need to stop him. We didn't take him. No, we just said, hey, Hitler, you stay in Germany. You can't go into Poland, but you can stay in Germany. So the rhetoric just doesn't really match with the... it almost kind of makes sense logically why Baby Bush would do the shit that he did. Because it's like, God, if you're going to fucking do something, do it, Open the damn floodgates. Let's just get a forever war in here. Why piddle and paddle around here? Why just fiddly fat and farting around? So you had Carter never bombed anybody. So it can be done. A president can be president for 4 years. There's another 4-year president. So Poppy Bush is like Jimmy Carter. Jimmy Carter didn't bomb nobody. He didn't bomb nobody. He also ran on the decriminalization of marijuana. He was also a peanut farmer. But it can be done. You can be the president and not get into any major fucking wars. So, Taft, Garfield, is that who Poppy Bush is like? Is he like a Taft or a Garfield? He definitely wasn't no Jimmy Carter. And he wasn't an Obama, and then, Trump. Everybody's going to say how great he was compared to Trump. But you all got to quit doing that. You need to start peace and give credit where credit is due. I like these. A good, solid critique. I said a few things that, old Poppy Bush did that was right. So, Yeah, I already mentioned a lot of this. If Obama's to blame for Trump, then Poppy Bush is to blame for Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton. Poppy Bush is to blame for the rise of the Clintons, so that's Bill and Hillary. Thanks a lot, Poppy Bush, for giving us Hillary Clinton. But then so did Donald Trump, right? He financed Hillary's, all them campaigns and shit. Also, the first 12 hours, we bombed a hospital in the first Iraq War. 40 premature babies were killed, so they're so pro-life, they went ahead and just killed, 40 premature babies who are on life support, and they were trying to say, but we went ahead and bombed the hospital because who gives a shit about those kids, right? 40 kids are dead. 400 innocents are dead. Hotels are bombing hospitals, schools, infrastructure, media, anything and everything. It's indiscriminate bombing. It's goddamn carpet bombing. It's fucking Vietnam. So, no, you should not have that creepy motherfucker's hands on your fucking ass. I mean, we've invaded Congo, El Salvador, Guatemala, Indonesia, Peru, Nicaragua. Usually just for our own interest. We invaded Panama for self-defense. Oh no, Panama's going to invade us any moment now. Oh yeah, really? Watch out for Panama invading us. Everybody watch out! So, yeah, thanks a lot, Pappy. Old Professor Copperfield. Old Mr. Me Too. Mr. He's not, I won't say he's a, what's his face, but, misdemeanor sexual assault, misdemeanor sexual battery. And it was not battery is the intent. Assault is the actual fucking deed. He did the deed. So, yeah. The war was pretty much perfectly illustrated. It was a splendid little war. That's why people forget about him. That's why people don't realize the damage that he's done, because they don't think about his legacy and what his actions actually wrought. What will happen because we put Clarence Thomas on the Supreme Court? What happened because you put 200 homophobic judges on the bench, and then not give a fuck about the poor and the homeless and the unions and a lot of other shit. So, yeah, there's the legacy of Poppy Bush.